following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
Thank you, Tally Olson. Another episode of Lovin' Baseball, when we were 12 and innocent. I'm Ralph Tycho of the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network, and my guests are two guys who were born exactly the same time I was, so we can go back when we were 12, what it was like. First, Marty Rose. How you doing, Marty?
Very good, Ralph. Very good. Thank you.
Welcome back to the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. You're such an integral part of it, as are you, Robert Cole. How are you?
Good. Thank you, Ralph.
Good. I think I'm the oldest, so I'll start off with the questions. You first, Robert, because I know more about Marty being his second grade classmate than I do about you, Robert. I'm going to take you back to age 12 when passions run high and knowledge is being brought into your head at an incredible rate of speed. What's your first memory of baseball?
Okay, at 12 years old?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, 12 years old, okay, we're talking 59 into 60. 59, I was still sort of kind of a Dodger fan and still rooting for them to win the World Series, which they did against the White Sox. And, like I said, I was still a little bit of a Dodger fan. Moving into 1960, of course, you had, the Pirates and the Yankees in the World Series, and that was Roger Maris's first year at the Yankees. And I remember that because I became a Roger Maris fan as my second favorite player. And there's just a whole lot of stuff going on. Sixth grade, we did our sixth grade in the middle school that year because our middle school had just opened and they had plenty of room. So, we were kind of in with the middle schoolers, but we were still elementary schoolers. So for me, it was quite a different kind of thing, moving out of the comfort of an elementary school and, being in middle school with the 7th and 8th graders.
Okay. Marty,
yes.
Your remembrance of 12 years being 12 and following baseball.
Well, we were still pretty unhappy that we lost the Dodgers and the Giants. My dad was a Giants fan, and I was born in Brooklyn, so I was a Dodgers fan. And my mother's family was from Brooklyn. They were all Dodgers fans. And, once they left, there was a big void. And, it was difficult when all you had was the Yankees, who you were taught not to like,
Right.
Probably because they always won and we didn't, But I do remember...
It was weird because you love the players and respect their ability.
Yes.
But hate the team and the owners and the hierarchy and all that went with it. But you couldn't help when you look at that infield, you go, wow. And you look at that outfield, you go, whoa. And 3 or 4 catchers. And Bob Turley and Whitey Ford and Louis Arroyo and all those. It was not easy as 3 former National League fans to all of a sudden lose the rooting part of it, and you're rooting against, if not for, makes it hard on a kid.
Yeah.
I still feel damage of that loss. You lose your team. It was a bitch.
Yeah, absolutely. But I do remember, and I'm sure you remember this too, shortly after they did leave, there's a 3-hour time difference all of a sudden. Even if you could hear the games, it's bedtime when you're a kid. So, you remember that they used to do the recreations of the games by, I guess Les Kiter was doing the Giants games, and he'd be looking at the ticker tape that the ticker tape that comes from the ballpark by whoever's working the game. Like the AP had people working the game and doing that, and the guy would type in something like Mays doubles to left, and that's it. That's all it would say.
And
Mays
you'd
doubles
have
to left.
sound effects and make a game out of it.
But the guy on the radio is going, here's the pitch, and it's a deep drive, and he's going, he's making it exciting. Well, he doesn't have any idea really what's happening, but he makes it all up, and it was really very cool. I liked that.
I don't know if you know, Marty, that Ronald Reagan got his start doing that, going out of town and announcing games based on, or not going out of town, and guys would send him the ticker tape, and he'd make a game out of it.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, another thing I want to say about that particular time period, that I got the biggest respect for Mickey Mantle then, because being in New York, and he was the biggest star. I mean, he just won the Triple Crown in '56, and the Yankees always win. It's just that when the man came up to the plate, you stopped and watched.
Right.
And just thinking, how far is the ball going to go? That's all I'm thinking as a 12-year-old, How far is it going to go? And son of a gun, he sure hit some long ones.
I was insensitive to the fact that the man played with some incredibly debilitating injuries that as an adult you get to appreciate just how great he was despite those injuries. And when he was incredibly fast when we were watching him, but when he came up, Stengel said, "I think this guy is Cobb with power."
Mm.
That was Stengel's description of Mickey Mantle.
Mm.
So he was indeed great, and it was amazing how a lot of fans booed him for a long time. Took him years and years. It took Roger Maris being the comment. Why don't you go for that, Robert?
Yeah, well, Mickey Mantle was replacing Joe DiMaggio, and nobody could replace DiMaggio in the fans' eyes. And it took, as you said, a couple of years before Mickey Mantle was recognized for being as great as he was. And then when Roger Maris came along in 1960, Maris won the MVP. A lot of people thought that Mantle should have won it. Of course, in '61, they had the famous home run race, and Maris, got the record, and fans started to boo Maris and were rooting for Mantle. And Mantle really became the golden boy, and Maris became the villain, basically. I remember all during that year of '61, my father took me to a lot of games during the '61 season, and Maris would get booed tremendously. In fact, he was so nervous and so stressed out that he was losing his hair all during that season.
That's right.
Yeah.
Remember that.
Marty, you must remember you and I going to the Boulevard Theater to see a movie that came out after the 61 season about Roger Maris and Mickey Mantle. I think, I can't think of the name of it, but there were Bub Farley was in it, played a coach. You don't remember that, do you?
I don't. No.
Okay. Well,
I do remember the Billy Crystal movie though, which was very good too.
Number 61.
Yeah.
It was very good, very realistic in terms of uniforms, caps, the exact color of the Yankee gray away uniforms.
Mm-hmm.
It was really well done. Good caricature of Bob Cerv, who was one of those guys who spanned two eras of dynasties. Cerv played a lot, came up in the early. I mean, they were just great for years and years, but Cerv played with them on and off for like 5-6 years, and ended up being a pretty good outfielder, not a pretty good hitter with Kansas City. He and Lumpy and those guys who came in those trades, individually they were pretty good ball players. What a deep squad the Yankees were. Incredible.
Unbelievable. Really?
Yeah. Plus they had a farm system, in the major leagues, the Kansas City Athletics. Whenever they needed a player, they got him from Kansas City. That's how they got Maris.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, that was before the draft also, so they they could sign anybody they want by opening up the checkbook.
Yep.
Yeah.
There was a rumor that when Maris was traded from Cleveland to Kansas City, the Yankees said, that's our guy. They were assured that at that, and he spent a year or so with Kansas City before.
Yes,
he was a really good athlete, and people forget he hit 61 home runs. But he was and won the MVP. But he won the MVP the previous year as well. He didn't just pull that year out of his pocketbook. It was.
Oh no.
He was really great, and the Yankees did him wrong by misdiagnosing, either intentionally or what have you, the extent of Maris's wrist injury, so they could trade him to St. Louis. And so baseball was a business in those days. We didn't know it. We were a lot more innocent, but it isn't much changed from those days to this day. We were innocent only because we were 12. We would have recognized that quicker if, But it was fun thinking, we'd pick up the newspaper and we wouldn't care what was on the front page. We turned right to the back page to see what happened. And as a kid, you can think that way, and as an adult, you can't. And when I thought of this podcast and the premise, it is our last year at 13, especially in the Jewish religion, Robert. 13 is very significant when you are supposed to be a man. And with that comes, if you're not careful, a lot of thinking that you are you lose a lot of your childhood that way. It doesn't have to happen at 13. But as a kid, things are subliminally or whatever different at 13 where, hey, what are you going to do with yourselves, your life, that kind of thing. Where at 12, you could think that your baseball is more important than it really is, if you can imagine that. But any more thoughts? Robert, I'll ask you to close it out, your thoughts of being 12 and what baseball is like for you.
Well, like I said, Marty mentioned, our teams are on the West Coast. Many times when I would leave for school in the morning, I didn't know whether the Dodgers had won or lost until I came home in the afternoon to see the afternoon paper. Because the morning paper would only have, at most, 1 or 2 innings of the games on the West Coast. So it was, a strange kind of a time, and it was very hard, as Marty said, to follow, the Dodgers and the Giants. And very often, like I said, I didn't know how the Dodgers had done until almost the next day. So it was different. It was different. It was fun. It was also, 1960, 59, 60 were the last so-called pure years before there was expansion as well. As you said, those were the years of the 8-team leagues. And things started to change in 61 when the American League expanded by 2 teams. And then in 62, the National League expanded by 2 teams. So when we were 12, things were changing. We may not have known it at the time, but change was coming.
Yes, more so than we would have ever expected. Politically, baseball-wise, who would have thought that this is the second year where there will be no mention of the National League versus the American League in any of this. And it's going to die out. It's all going to be one big league. They'll call it the National Division, the American Division, but it won't be the same. And things never are. Marty, close us out.
Yeah, well, those years we were in like junior high school. I mean, we weren't even in high school yet, and it was just everything was like it was just game. It was like schoolwork and play. There was no, grown-up talk. There was no thinking about the future that much. It was just do your homework, go to school, and go out and play, watch your games. And luckily I had my uncle, and my dad would take me to games, which was good all the time. He took me to games in the garden. I got tickets from my uncle. We'd sit all the way downstairs. It was fun. It was fun, but just not having to think about real life, like you said before. It was all fun and games, and it was a good time. It was a very good time.
That's a beautiful way to end the podcast. Robert Cole, Marty Rose, thank you very much. We are 12 forever on one level or another. Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. I'm Ralph Tycho, the weak link of it all. Adios, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
Jay, a perfect line around this track. A hard-charging performance for Devin Moran up in the top five tonight, but it was Ricky Thornton Jr. with the win. The checkered flag flying for the driver, 20 RT. Here's Dave. Well, Mike Marler, a good second-place run. I'm going to get your perspective on that traffic question. On the last 5 laps, you were going to catch a bunch of traffic, and you caught that yellow.
The proceeding has been a comfortably zoned network production. You are advised to keep your dreams wet, your humor dry, your children and grandchildren out of military recruiting offices and off the laps of clerics who wear dresses. Thank you for listening, everyone. Happy trails.